Welcome students, chapter 8 part 2 instance variable and instance method. But before we continue with this topic, just quickly revise all this screen which we did in chapter 8. We see this simple program, then we understood what a class in the Java programming, and you know that class contains two things, attributes and behavior. Then creating a class, creating an object from the class is a three-step process: declaration, instantiation, and then initialization. Then it explains how objects are created, writing like room R1 is equal to new room, that creates object of type room with name R1. This another program we saw where we have created room class, and then from that room class we created two objects R1 and R2. Then we displayed its blank value, then we assigned it some values, and then we again displayed those assigned values, and then finally we printed area of the room, both R1 and R2. This is the output of that program, and this shows that how those two objects are created. As you can see, they are exactly similar, only they are differing in their values because they are created or they are instantiated from same class. And now instance variable and instance method. So what are instance variable and method? An object that belongs to a class is said to be an instance of that class. So R1 and R2, they are belonging to room class. So we can say that R1 and R2 are instance of class room. So instance is actually a word which is used in place of object. You can consider object and instance as same. An instance of a class is another word for an actual object. Each instance of a class can hold different values for its variable, as you can see. These are the two instances of class room, and they hold different values. R1 holds length 18 and R2 holds length as 14. A method can be invoked using the objects to access or modify the instance variable. So we invoke a method, we call a method, we run a method using the object. So as you can see here, using object, we call a method r1.area, r1.display, r1.setAttribute. So we invoke method using the object to access or modify the instance variable. Such methods are used to define behavior of an object, and invoking such method is to ask the object to perform some task on that object. Each object instance has its own set of data, as you saw in the previous screen, R1 and R2. Instance variable and instance methods, they are referred via object using dot operator. That also we saw in the program. R1.length, R1.area, R1.display, R1.setAttribute. So we can refer to instance variable and instance method using dot operator, as you can see here, R1.length, R2.length, because all those objects created from room class will be having length variable, length attribute. Then how we refer to particular length of particular object? So by specifying the object name and the attribute name separated by dot. Similarly, object name and method name separated by dot. So that is called instance variable. This is r1.length is called instance variable, and r1.setAttribute, that is called instance method. Similarly, there is something called class variable and class method. Now this is very interesting to understand what are class variable and what are class methods. The variable which is shared by all the objects of instances of the same class should be allocated memory only once per class. Carefully understand this sentence. What it says is that there are certain variables which we do not need to create in every object, but they are shared by all the objects. And such variables should be declared only once in the class and should not be repeated in every object. So here all these four variables are repeating in every object. R1 માં પણ repeat થાય છે, R2 માં પણ same variable repeat થાય છે. But suppose I want to create a variable as total number of windows in the entire building. Suppose this is room 1 and room 2, but collectively I want total number of windows in the entire building. Then this variable should not be repeated in every object, because there is no point using this variable repeating in every object. It is a class variable which should be declared in class only once, and while creating object they should not be copied into the object. Let us see one more example. I am asking the students for their 10th standard percentage in a class of 10 students, and I want to calculate average of the class, average percentage of the entire class. Do I need to give that field to students to write? No, because average percentage of the entire class is a such activity which I collectively I can do when I receive all the students 10th standard percentage. If I give that field to every students, they won't be able to write anything in that, because they don't know about the percentage of other students. So such variable which does not belong to individual object, rather they belong to a class itself, should be declared as class variable, and such method also should be declared as class method. Now, how to declare any variable or method as a class variable or class method? So it says that such can be declared using the keyword static. So let us see the second point. This means that variable belongs to a class and not to an object. That is called class variable. It is not belonging to any object. Like average percentage of the entire class is not belonging to any one student. It is belonging to the entire class. Such variables can be declared within a class using static keyword before the data type. For example, static integer n windows. So n windows is of type integer. Here it is taken as integer. Previous program we had taken it as byte, but it can be anything, like whatever is your requirement. But static means now this n windows is class variable which will not be copied in every object. These static variables are called class variables. Values of instance variable are stored in the memory allocated for the object. Remember this sentence also, try to understand it. It says value of instance variable. Instance variable means all these variables, length, width, height, and windows, all these are instance variable. So values of those variables are stored in the memory at a proper memory place which is allocated to that object, and values of static variable, that is class variables, are stored in the class itself. They are not copied into the object. Same as class variable, class method can also be defined using static keyword. So class variable and class methods can be specified using static keyword before that variable or name or before that method name. Class variables and class methods can be accessed, that means can be used outside the class using class name, dot, and method name or variable name, as we have seen. R1 dot length, R1 dot set attribute, R1 dot display, and so on. For example, here class method, so that is instance variable. R1 dot length is instance variable because length belongs to every object. R1, R2, R3, R4, R5, every object has got length. So we need to say R1 dot length, R2 dot length, R3 dot length, so on. But to access class variable and class method, we don't need to refer to object. We directly refer to class name, that is room dot total windows, room dot display total windows. So this is how we access class method and class variable, by referring to the name of the class and variable name separated by dot. Whereas instance variable are referred by object name followed by dot and then variable name and method name. So R1 dot length, that is instance variable, and room.length, if I write, then it is class variable. So that is what class variable and class method. Let us see here. You need to refer to only this one particular line in the program, otherwise almost the program is same as the previous program. Static integer total windows. So we have written word static before integer. That means now this total windows variable is class variable. Whenever we create any object of this room class, like R1, R2 or any object is created here, room R1, room R2, everything will be copied. That means set attribute method, set windows method, area method, display method, this everything will be copied into the R1 and R2. Even length, width, height and in windows also will be copied in R1 and R2. But total windows variable, that is this static variable, will not be copied in R1 and R2. It will remain in class itself, that is in room class itself. And wherever you need to refer to that variable, that is total windows variable, we specify the name of the class. But wherever you want to refer to display method, we specify name of the object, r1.display, r2.display. But similarly here there will be length and width also somewhere referred, that will be using r1 dot r2 dot and like that. But to access total windows, which is a class variable, we write room dot total windows. So that is what class variable, how they are referred. Let's say some detail about class variables and class method. Class methods are global to the class itself and available to any other classes or objects. So once you define any method as a class method, they are global to the entire class. It can be accessed, can be used from any other class in the same program, and it is also available to any other classes or the object of the same program. So the methods that provide some general utility but do not directly affect an instance, that is an object of the class, are better declared as class method. તો એવી મેથડ કે જે ઇન્ડિવિજ્યુઅલ ઓબ્જેક્ટને કોઈ ચેન્જીસ ન કરતી હોય, એની કોઈ ઇફેક્ટ ન હોય ઇન્ડિવિજ્યુઅલ ઓબ્જેક્ટ પર, but rather it has a global effect on the entire class, should be declared as class method. Remember that the main method which we use in every program, which is compulsory to write in every program, is also a class method, and so it is declared using class method using static word. As you can see here, the main method, public static void main, so it is a static method, so it's a class method. That is why when we create object of room demo static class, or wherever whichever class where there is main method, that main method will not be copied into the object because it is static object. So that is okay, static method and static variable. Remember that the main method which is we use is class method, and that is why it is declared using the keyword static. Class variables and class methods can be accessed using a class name or a reference variable, but it is advised to access it using class name. So it is better you refer to class variable using the name of the class followed by dot and the name of the attribute or behavior. Class variables and class methods can be accessed from instance method also. They can be referred through object also. If you have created R1 object of room class, and room class has a static variable xyz, then you can refer to that xyz variable from your instance method, that is the method from your object R1. So it can be referred because it is global. When you define any variable as class variable, it is global to that class, so it can be accessed from anywhere in the class. So instance variables and instance methods cannot be accessed from class methods as they do not belong to any object. So instance method and instance variable જે બનાવીએ છીએ, that is normal variable without static keyword, they cannot be accessed from the class. We cannot use it from class, but the class variable can be used by method, but the instance variable cannot be used by class. The vice versa is not possible. Then the reason is because they do not belong to any object. They belong to all the object. They don't belong to any particular object. The instance variable are the variable which is common in every object. So that is what the difference between instance variable and class variable, instance method and class method. Once again, very quickly, instance variable and instance methods are those which is required by every object, whereas class method and class variables are those which are not used by every object individually, but rather it represents some collective information. So as I said, if I give you a printout, same printout to the entire class, 50 students, where there is a name, surname, birth date, and percentage in 10th standard, then these all are instance variable. But there cannot be any field like average percentage of class, because that has nothing to do with individual object. It's a class variable which is a collective global variable which can be calculated from the combining all the values from different objects of the same class. So that is what class variable and class method. Classifications of variables. How many different types of variables are there now, or how they are classified? So there are basically three types of variable: local variable, instance variable, and class variable. Now what is local variable? Local variables are the variables which are defined within a method or within a block. They are called local variable. And scope of that variable, availability of that variable is only within that block. It does not exist outside that block. So that is local variable. For example, formal parameters of method are also local variables. Local variables are not initialized by default value automatically. We need to use constructor for that. So that is formal parameters. As you see, these are formal parameters. These are called formal parameters. So formal parameters of any method are called local variables. Instance variables are defined within a class but outside any method. They are defined within a class, a room class से any अंदर is defined था, but outside any method. So these all four, height, width, length, and n windows, these are instance variable because they are not defined within any method. They are defined within a room class outside any method. So they are called instance variable. These variables are allocated memory from heap area when an object is created. So when such objects are created, all these variables are given special memory location. So that is instance variable. Instance variables are initialized by default values automatically. Third is class variable. Class variables are also the same variable which are defined outside any method within a class, but they are preceded by the keyword static. So as you can see here, total windows is a class variable. It is a static variable because it is defined outside any method within class room, but preceded by the keyword static. So remember, length, width, height, n windows are instance variable. Static integer total windows is a class variable, and suppose if I would have defined any variable here within this or somewhere here anywhere within any method, a special variable, suppose here set windows ની ઉપર એક line હોત integer a, then that variable a is called local variable. So three types of variable: local variable, instance variable, and class variable. Let us read the paragraph of class variable. It says that these variables, that is all these class variables, are allocated memory only once per class and it is shared by all the objects. So class variables are initialized by default values again. So remember, this, as you see, these are instance variable and they occupy different space as many objects we create. So length, there are two times length, but one is in R1 and another is in R2. Both will occupy separate memory space. But if you consider total windows, which is a static variable, class variable, will not occupy every time you create object and new memory location. It will created in memory only once, and that will be shared or used by all these objects. So that is the last line what it says, that the variables are allocated memory only once, that is static variable per class, and it is shared by all its objects. Polymorphism, already we discussed about polymorphism, the concept of polymorphism in chapter 6. Here we'll see how it is implemented in Java program. As you know, the word polymorphism means many forms, different forms of methods with the same name. We create more than one methods with the same name, and that situation is called polymorphism or method overloading. So in Java, we can define different methods that have same name but different signature. Now here you need to understand the word signature. What does it mean? Signature means the parameters. Signature means the parameters which you write in the bracket. And this situation is called method overloading. So the method signature is not only parameter, it is made up of three things. The method signature is a combination of name of the method, type of its return value, and a list of parameters. These three things defines the signature of the method. Now as you can see in the examples given below, there are three methods with the same name, max. But if you look at all the three methods, they have different, either they have different return type or they have different list of parameters. For example, first and second method, they have same return type, same name, but then the list of parameters are different. In first max method, there are only two parameters, integer x, integer y. Whereas in second method, there are three parameters, integer x, integer y, and integer z. Third method, it has a different return type and even different set of parameter. The return type is double, and even the parameters are also double x and double y. So as you understand, we can have more than one methods with the same name in Java, but its signature must be different. Then only compiler will be able to differentiate between all those different methods. So let us see as an example which is given in the textbook. Here the class name is println, and that is P capital L capital. As you know that class name begins with capital letter. And then there are three methods in that class: static void print line, static void print line, static void print line. So as you know, all these three methods are having same name. But if you look at the parameter, even same name and same return type, both has got same return type and same name. But if you look at the parameter, all the three methods has got different parameter. First print line method has got no parameter. Second print line method has got only one parameter, that is integer n. And third print line method has got two parameters, that is character ch and integer n. So now when you execute this method from your main program or the main class, as it is shown down in the class polydemo, if you look at the three lines, first line says println without any parameter. So now compiler will understand that this has to be executed by the first method written in the println class. Second is println into bracket some character hash symbol, I think. So it will understand that it has to go to that println method where there is only one parameter. And the third example or the third line is println into bracket plus sign comma 70. So it understands comma 20, that is 20. So it understands that it is with two parameters. So it will go to the third method where there is character ch and integer n, and it will print plus sign for 20 times. So this is how compiler understands based on the number of parameters that which method is to be executed. One more thing to make clear in this example is, even though the name of the class and name of the method are same in pronunciation, but they are totally different. class name is also print line, and all these three methods names are also print line. But if you look closely, the class name has got print line with P and L capital, whereas in method, all these three method has got lowercase letter. All the cases are lowercase letter, print line with no capital letter. So you need to understand that also, because Java is case sensitive. It doesn't make it same when the words are same. It checks even for the capital and small letter of the alphabet of the class name and method name. Till next session, bye bye, take care.